Good morning. Welcome to Sunrise Coffee, number 5. And we are out here on the project porch on another chill morning. You can still see the steam coming up off the coffee. And it's Catboat Travels and Gunk Hole Projects. Um, let's continue with our theme of why build a boat. Why build a boat rather than buying one off the shelf? Yesterday we talked about because you must. There's something in you, a creative impulse, the desire to have something special, uh, the desire to be directly connected with the product of your labor. And there's a great joy in that. There's a more practical element, slightly more practical, of you can build in features that you think are good, that you wonder about, we'll call those experimental, and that are going to be useful on whatever purpose you have. This is not this catboat, the Seagull, is not my first choice, but it's a good choice. The best boat I was going to build for this voyage was a 22-foot Dutch utility scow from Howard Chappell's book, Boat Building. Howard Chappell had been the curator of the Smithsonian Watercraft Collection, and during the WPA period in American history where the government hired people to do public works, pardon me, oh, damn fine cup of coffee and hot. Uh, the WPA, he had gone around the United States basically on a grant, as we would say now, documenting rotting and decaying historical boats so that their type and their measurements would not be lost to the history of time. And that book was American Small Sailing Craft, highly recommended by Howard Irving Chappell. Uh, Anyhow, you can build into your own construction the things that are useful for you. On the Seagull, she wasn't designed with a cabin, but I want a cabin. I've done over 3,000 miles without a cabin, and it was all right, but I'm going to be sailing through more urban areas where tying up and putting a tent on the shore probably isn't a good idea. Plus, this may take 2 years of voyaging. It was one thing to live like that for half a year. It's another thing to live like that for, 2, maybe longer years. And I want to build a cabin that is slightly, looks like it's standard for catboat, but is not standard. I'm going to put on a pop-top cabin that I read about in the work of one of my favorite maritime writers, Francis B. Cook, who started publishing in 1917 and continued publishing until the 1970s when he was in his 90s. This guy's still writing articles about sailing and small boats, and a lot of his work is in the public domain and is available in Internet Archive. Highly recommended. He showed a design that had been used on a Harrison T. Butler, English, very accomplished amateur designer. Um, Harrison T. Butler, he was a physician and designed some gorgeous, gorgeous and useful watercraft that are still being used and built today. Harrison T. Butler published in English Yachting Magazine a Law's lifting cabin on one of his single-handers in the 18-foot range. And I'm going to use that as the pop top to give me more sitting room inside. Of course, on a 15-footer, you're never going to be able to put in a cabin that you can stand up in. Just isn't going to work. But you can do pretty well. If you want to stand up, go out into the cockpit, go out up on deck. To starboard, or as you're looking to the forward end of the boat, the right-hand side, I'm going to put in a little pipe berth bunk. Catboats very often had a bunk to port, a bunk to starboard, and then the centerboard case, which held the centerboard, was used as a structure to hold up a table. And you could have a very, very nice nice table. And we're going to follow with that design. But to port, we're just going to put a minimal seat, not a full bunk, I don't think, at this time. Or we'll put in a full bunk and then put in modular boxes with fronts that drop down for the various stations and activities. A dark room. I do large format film photography, which is what I did yesterday. I went to the beach and hauled an 8 by 10 camera. That's a film camera that uses 8-inch by 10-inch negatives. And they're in wooden slides. And they went in and had a fun day at the beach. That work will be coming up on a slightly different podcast format than this. So you can customize your work, and that is it's a huge thing if you do a lot of reading about boats. If you're an armchair sailor, you've read about all these cool things, and building a boat gives you a chance to try them out rather than to be stuck with a manufacturer's idea of how the boat is going to be used. And if you're just going to do day sailing, you can get away with a made boat by someone else because you're going to be using it the way that they envisioned it. On the other hand, a lot of boats were sold in the 25 to 30 foot range, were sold to people who hadn't been boat owners and hadn't spent much time on the water. And so in a 20-foot boat, they advertise sleeps 6. And while the boat might sleep 6, if you go out for any amount of time with 6 people on a 20 or 25-foot boat, I almost guarantee you will not be friends at the end, and that, if it's your marital partner, they will be considering filing for divorce. It is a too cramped situation. No place to get away and have some privacy, which is one of the requirements for human flourishing. So anyhow, this Friday, we are going to do a evening, longer form video. We're going to call that Sundowners with Catboat Travels. And there I'm going to give you the lines and the images and most of the plans for Seagull, and show you where you can go find them yourself. We'll also, on this new venture, talk about longer things, take some video, and have a lot of fun. Have a marvelous day. It's cold right now, but about 11 o'clock, it's going to be time for epoxy. I'm going to have several days of epoxy quality weather. So until tomorrow, this is Catboat Travels and Gunk Hole Projects, lining up for a big gunk hole project. And what's a gunk hole? Well, we'll talk about that tomorrow. Bye-bye now.